Alright. Hello everybody. Welcome to the Octopath Traveler Ophilia single story.
Alright, so like Sanjin was saying, this is Ophilia single story. The goal of this is to finish Ophilia's 4-chapter story as quickly as possible. The one rule is you do have to start with Ophilia, which provides some very interesting routing options to our runners that we will kind of see unfold over the next hour or so.
So you're gonna see that they guided the child. This guide option is Ophilia's path action. The guide pretty much recruits an NPC to your class, although it is 100% success rate, although it is dependent on Ophilia's level, which you will see for some routes, depending on which route they choose, will come into play.
Yeah, so we're just making our way through Ophilia's Chapter 1. All the characters in this game, when you start as them, you are locked into their Chapter 1. So you have to go through, complete all of the actions, and then defeat the Chapter 1 boss before you're allowed to move on. So both runners right now, they're just kind of going through the motions, skipping all the cutscenes. One of the best things about Octopath Traveler speedruns is you can skip every cutscene just by holding down that B button. So it takes your traditional long JRPG run and makes it very quick.
So you'll see they kind of did this in a different order. Ionic recruited the man in the tavern, also known as Tavern Patron or Summon Winds guy. He'll be used for the upcoming boss fight. And then you'll also see both of them bought a quartz rod, which increases Ophilia's magic damage output.
Yeah, so both runners are entering into the path to the shrine here at around the same time. No big deviations right away. So we'll see kind of the runner's approach here. Karma on the right-hand side is playing it fairly safe, just breaking that wolf before trying to run away. We'll see what Melodia decides to do. He probably will do the same, just go ahead and break and flee from the wolf right there. So yeah, it looks like Karma got a little bit unlucky there, got 2 encounters on that path, whereas Melodia only got the 1, which makes them sync right up again. One of the big sources of RNG in this run is going to be based on the encounters that runners get. So some screens you might have a scripted 1 encounter, some screens you might have a chance to get more than that. Just depending on if you get lucky with the step counter, you may or may not skip that second encounter.
You'll see both of them chose to break the encounter. This ensures a 100% flee rate, although it is slightly slower than taking the YOLO flee. Taking the YOLO flee is faster, but you do have a risk of not being able to escape, therefore wasting a little bit.
Alright, so both runners are into the Guardian fight here. We're going to see them both do the summon on the winged boy that they recruited from the tavern in Ophilia's Chapter 1. This guy has 3 different attacks, and he can choose to use them all randomly. The one we really want to see is the wind attack. It is multi-hit, so it's going to hit the Guardian 3 times, and as you see, when the Guardian gets hit 6 times, he gets broken. Now, both runners are probably going to be able to defeat the Guardian in 2 break cycles, and it just depends on how many of those wounds that you get to kind of speed up that break.
So both runners have been able to get the Summon Winds man to press Summon Winds, so thankfully and with that they were able to use a fully boosted holy light to do some damage. Unfortunately, but for Ionic, he did not do enough damage to trigger the summoning the Dark Wisp, which is approximately HP based.
Yeah, I think that's actually a bonus. If you can skip the trial, you don't have to deal with the little elemental taking its turn, and you get to skip some animations, which causes Karma's fight to be a little bit faster than Melodia's.
Unfortunately, there's a little bit of a side effect based on what their what their money routing will be, because if you didn't, or if the Dark Wisp does not spawn, you get a little bit less money from the fight. So both of them were able to defeat the Guardian quite handily.
Yeah, and I didn't see a Shadow Soulstone drop from either of them, so I think they're both going to be on a pretty level footing when they get to Atlas Dam and after they go through Russell's dungeon.
So now with the chapter complete, they'll be exiting Flame's Grace and making their way to get their second character, which is Cyrus. But Cyrus is a pretty valuable character in the speedrun because getting him will enable you access to evasive maneuvers quite fast, unless you get very lucky and manage to kill a cape, which is pretty unlikely in this scenario.
Yeah, so both runners getting fairly similar RNG. Karma's taking this really safe. Normally you don't break this wolf because the Holy Light animation is just way too long, but he's just playing it as safe as possible, making sure to get that guaranteed flee. Sometimes that wolf can be a little bit finicky with if he'll let you out of the combat or not. And then on Melodia's screen, we see ants. Ants are absolutely the worst encounter that you want to get. They are just not fun. They do have a very real chance of killing Ophilia here. If he fails one more flee, it's not going to be pretty. And we get ants on Karma's side as well. Alright, cool.
Those ants hurt, and then basically, if you fail escape, the damage adds on quite quick, and Ophilia is not the most tankiest character.
Yeah, it looks like both runners are going to make it through to Atlas Dam just fine. No early deaths here. That's what we like to see. We don't want to see anybody get bad RNG, lose the race because of it. We like to see a nice fair race. Everybody on equal footing.
And so now both of them are heading to Atlas Dam and picking up their second character, Cyrus.
Yeah, so Cyrus is the scholar of Octopath Traveler. He's basically our black mage. He gets access to elemental magics, and his path action is Scrutinize. So you're going to see the runners here do some scrutinizes. Basically what it does is on these specific NPCs is they are hiding an item. So by Cyrus using his powers of deduction, he is able to find what those hidden items are. So the runners are going to be picking up a light soulstone small and a light soulstone medium. Sanjin, do you want to explain what the soulstones are doing?
So these soulstones are items that do fixed damage to monsters. Well, they do a fixed base damage to monsters, so they'll do a base of 200, but for monsters that are weak to that element, they'll do a slightly higher damage. So a small soulstone, for example, would do base 200 damage to a monster, but then if a monster's weak to it, they'll do 260 damage instead. So you'll be seeing a medium soulstone that they picked up will do base 1100 damage. So you'll see these soulstones come into play later, but for this fight, the small soulstones will come into play, and then you'll see the light M soulstone being used later after the fight.
Yeah, soulstones are one of the big things that kind of breaks this game wide open. It's a very good source of early game damage. So running through the study here, our runners are going to be probably getting about 2 encounters, and we don't want to see the skeleton. The skeleton is really bad. He does not give enough JP for them to get the skills that they want after Russell. So seeing these lanterns, both of them get very good RNG. They're not going to be short on JP. Everything's going to be working smoothly.
Unfortunately, I got caught by surprise from the fire lantern, but fortunately, that's not a huge deal. You just lose a little time.
Yeah, no major differences between the 2 runners yet, which is really nice to see. They're both going to be kind of moving right into Russell. It looks like Melodia might have gotten the Shadow Soulstone drop. I did not see one, but I might have missed it.
Yeah, either he opted to skip the Light Soulstone chest, or got the Shadow Soulstone drop. So now we're heading to Russell. He's got him and his friends, the 2 water wisps. So what the runners are going to do is have Cyrus break them using Fireball, and then have Ophilia summon the Summon Winds man in hopes of getting Summon Winds on Russell, who is also weak to wind.
Yeah, so both runners, they're getting clean breaks on the
on the elementals here, we shouldn't really see any shenanigans happen. You can get very unlucky and just have them completely focus down on one character and kill them, but that didn't happen here.
Unfortunately, Melodia got pretty unlucky and everyone decided to gang up on poor Cyrus and killed him, so Melodia's gonna have to res up Cyrus here and then continue to break the escape trade.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't throw him off too much. Mistakes like that can be a little bit tilting because it is mostly RNG dependent. But yeah, we'll see the wrestle fight here. The difference between a good wrestle fight and a bad wrestle fight is like almost a minute. So depending if you get the wins patterns that are good, where your guy just like summons wins over and over and over, or if you get no wins, you can have a very different fight time.
Yeah, so it looks like Ionic's wrestle is going quite smoothly. He was able to kill off the water wisp handily without any shenanigans happening. And then Summon Wind's guy was able to deliver and he was able to do some nice damage to Russell.
Yeah, and this should be the final break right here. Russell should be dying fairly soon on Karma's side. Melodia is not too far behind. We're probably going to have to see maybe one additional break because Cyrus's BP is not going to line up because that.
Yeah, so in this fight, Russell has around 3024 HP, around that amount, and a good Russell fight is basically knowing how much damage you've done and knowing what to do based on what Summon Wind's guy decides to do, because being able to count damage is quite important for a fast Russell fight.
Yeah, both runners are out of there. They should both have now enough JP to teach Cyrus Lightning Blast and Ophilia Luminescence. These abilities are going to really help with the upcoming grind section. The next goal, now that we have Cyrus, is to get evasive maneuvers. So in order to do that, we need to get 100 JP. JP is job points in this game, and it enables our characters to learn new skills.
Yeah, so this is where the Light Soul Storm end that Cyrus scrutinized earlier will come into play. They're going to head off to an infamous area called the Whistlewood.
Yes, so this dungeon just north of Atlas Dam, it has a little bit of a higher level than the surrounding areas. It's about monster level 15, which is going to enable them to get some very, very quick and easy JP. So you're going to see the runners here potentially killing some encounters before they get to Whistlewood. This is just a little bit of safety because once they're actually in the wood, not all of the encounters give enough JP. So by killing some stuff proactively, they're building a little bit of a buffer just in case they get some bad encounters in there.
Yeah, so in the ideal encounter in Whistlewood would be generally anything with worms or howlers, assuming Cyrus has Lightning Blast, or any encounter that contains a cape. But however, with howlers, they will need to break. They will need Cyrus to break the howlers with Lightning Blast, as a Light Soul Storm by itself will not kill.
Yeah, so staying true to form, Karma is playing incredibly safe and even taking the bad frog encounters, whereas Melodia decided to run away from the frog encounters. That is probably going to come back to bite him in the butt because this is a bad frog encounter in the Whistlewood. This is the lowest JP encounter you can possibly get, so there's going to be a long grind in his future.
Yeah, so what they're essentially doing here is trying to get a total of 100 JP to learn Blizzard, and with that comes evasive maneuvers, which is a very important skill that will allow the players to basically explore areas that they did not intend, or that was not intended to be explored very early on.
Yep, and then Karma getting the second worst possible Whistlewood encounter. So they're both, again, on very even footing RNG-wise. Karma did take that additional encounter before entering Whistlewood, so he's going to be a little bit ahead on his JP grind. But both runners here are going to have to take some extra encounters before they're able to move on.
So it looks like both of them are running down Atlas Dam over to Ripple-Tide, and then since both of them did not get their ideal encounters, they will just have to run around and beat up encounters as they find on the way to Ripple-Tide in order to get evasive maneuvers.
Yeah, and I think both runners here are going to be opting for the 4-character Primrose route, at least based on what I was watching on their streams. So this really doesn't waste as much time as it would if you were doing the 3-character Purgation route, because you have to run to Rippletide anyway, and just taking a couple extra encounters along the way isn't the biggest deal in the world. This party can handily take care of any encounters that will pop up on their way to Tressa.
Melodia made his way to Rippletide and then unfortunately got a less than ideal encounter in the fish and the shell, since the shell is not really weak to anything that the players have, except for Blizzard, which they do not have yet.
Yeah, it looks like Karma is done with his evasive maneuvers grind, got that skill, and basically what evasive maneuvers does is it reduces your encounter rate by 2.5. So on screens that you would normally get 1 encounter, you're now going to get 0 encounters. So the way the step counter works in this game is it picks a random number based on a known range, and it counts down from that. Once you get to 0, you get an encounter. Some screens are going to be 100% guaranteed no encounter. Some of them are going to be possible encounters, and some of them might be a range. So depending on the RNG that the runners are getting, they can either save a lot of time or lose a lot of time if they do get the encounters that are technically optional.
So we see Ionic already made his way to tag Rippletide and then went back, and we'll start his exploration segment. And Melodia is just getting to tagging Rippletide, and presumably, assuming they are doing the same route, they'll both be starting their exploration segment now.
Yes, this is a pretty decisive lead for Karma. He did get some good luck with the encounters, getting a triple ant encounter, which is actually the best possible encounter you can get for JP that is in that area that they were grinding. And then they're going to both be doing their exploration section. So one of the things that makes Octopath Traveler a really fun speed game is after you finish your chapter 1, the world is completely open. So these guys are going to be kind of going around the world, tagging some towns in order to fast travel to them later, as well as picking up a bunch of items from high level areas. So they're going to make their way down to the Grand Port Coast and pick up some stuff that they're going to need to finish the rest of the game.
So you see Ionic tagging Cobblestone here. This is generally like a safety measure, and then they'll be teleporting to here later after they complete their exploration segment. And so you'll see both of them after tagging Cobblestone, they'll be making their way down to Stone Guard and then eventually to Grandport, or Goldshore and Grandport.
Yeah, and they are making their way to the infamous Stone Guard Pass screen. This screen is just notorious for killing runs, and the route that they have to take through it, there is a chance that they get an encounter, and the encounter here is just not fun to deal with this party. You don't have Firestorm, you don't have hired help, and it'll probably kill you if you don't get away from it.
So Ionic is able to make it through that screen without any problem, and then now he's on his way to Moonstruck Coast, where he's gonna do a save and quit here, which will reset the step counter. And then after reloading, he will go and get the Merchant Shrine, which is a huge deal, since the Merchant Shrine is extremely useful.
Yeah, both runners making it through the Stone Guard Pass screen, and then they'll be doing the save and quit to Merchant. You can technically make this screen without an encounter, but it's like 98% chance that you're going to get an encounter. Those numbers are totally solid and not in any way made up. So yeah, picking up the Merchant Shrine here. This shrine will allow them to attach the Merchant subclass to any of their characters, except for Tressa, because she's already a Merchant, allowing them to have 2 Merchants in their party. Merchants get a skill called Hired Help, which is going to be the main source of damage throughout this entire run. So having 2 of them just kind of doubles your damage potential. It makes it way easier to defeat some of the higher level bosses that they're going to have to run into.
Yeah, so Tressa, a character that we'll be picking up later, has the Merchant class as their base class. In addition to that being really useful, having 2 Merchants, Tressa also has the Path Action purchase, which will allow them to use money to purchase items, and that will come quite into play. As well as her path action is to basically loot money from as she passes through screens from dead people. And this money scales by area as well, so once they have Tressa walking through high-level areas, they're going to rack up a decent amount of money quite quickly.
Yeah, so Tressa, very good, very valuable. She gets you a lot of extra money. She gets you some extra items. But you can see right now that neither runner actually has Tressa. So the reason for that is they have no clean way to kill Mick and Mac yet. So by doing this exploration section early and picking up the large soulstone, notably on this next screen, they're going to be able to one-shot the Chapter 1 boss and unlock Tressa much faster. This does have a downside in that you don't have Tressa for this exploration section, but the route that both of these runners are using is a very safe money route. It really allows a lot of leeway for some extra soulstones, or even if you mess something up and you need to back up your money, it's really not that difficult to make sure that you have enough to finish the run.
Yeah, so you'll see them collect the Win L Soulstone, which will be used for Mick and Mac later, as well as going back to reload the screen since the Win L does take a few steps and it makes that walk not safe. So they picked up the Wind Soulstone L and the Thunder Soulstone M, and then now they're on their way to picking up that 20k chest, and then they're gonna save and quit.
Yep, and then this is probably another notorious screen on this run. It's the Grand Port Coast, where if you get an encounter here, it's 100% death. And we see Karma getting bush skip right there, so that's good RNG. He's probably going to make it through just fine. Melodia is going to be just behind him.
Ooh, and they get the Grand Port Birds of Doom here.
Yeah, that bush skip. I think it was too far to the left. So you had to be a little bit further right to not get the birds. And Melodia didn't even go for bush skip, so there's probably an encounter here. But he's good enough.
Made it through.
He made it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ionic was able to get Summon Winds Man to do Summon Winds, but unfortunately that only takes out 3 of his shields, whereas the birds have 4 shields.
Yeah, it's just in general not a fun encounter to deal with. Thankfully, it kills you very quickly. Oh, that is unfortunate. That's some bad RNG.
Extremely unlucky. So the Birds of Doom came with some different friends, and they're just pretty much just gonna end them right there.
Yeah, this is definitely an Octopath Traveler speedrun. Lose minutes to some bad RNG.
So Melodia, after tagging Grandport, teleported to Ripple-Tide and is on his way and is starting the Tressa Chapter 1.
Yep, and Karma just tagging Grandport right there, made it through finally. Both runners are on Tressa 1, so even with that bad RNG, Karma's really not that far behind. There's still plenty of opportunity for him to catch up in the remainder of this run. All right, so moving right along, Melodia is making his way through the caves. Gonna head to Mick and Mac. So at this point, with the items that they have, these Chapter 1 bosses are very trivial. So that large Wind Soulstone is just gonna go ahead and one-shot this boss. You're really not supposed to have that kind of firepower this early in the game. So by being able to kind of break out into those higher level zones, abusing evasive maneuvers to make sure that you don't get encounters, it really kind of speeds up the early game acquisition of getting your characters.
So Ionic choosing to break the encounter in Ripple-Tide, on the way to the Caves of Maya.
Yeah, Ionic's been playing very, very safe. I think I really like that decision to just, if you get an encounter you can break, go ahead and break it. It kind of takes away some of that decision making that you need to be doing and kind of frees you up to think about other things.
So Melodia is completing Chess of Chapter 1, and then we'll be making their way to Runeblade. So interestingly, they're going to take the path from Cobblestone over to the Stoneguard area to the Everhold area, which contains a place called the Shrine of the Runeblade, and that place has quite a bit of money in there that they will be opt to get, as well as a light soul smell that they'll be getting along the way.
Yeah, that was an interesting decision to teleport to Cobblestone right there. You can technically just go down from Trestle 1 and head to Runeblade. It is faster if you don't get the encounter. So just kind of playing to that safety. This is a tournament run. You want to make sure that you have to kind of remove as much RNG as possible to be really, really consistent and just play your game the best you can play it.
Yeah, so as you progress through each screen, you'll see something on the top left saying that, oh, Tressa looted however this much amount of money from an unfortunate soul. That's basically Tressa's special ability. Basically, as you walk through the map, you'll get money, and the money multiplier is just based on the tier area that you're in. So you'll see that in the tier 2 area, which is Stoneguard, they got like a little bit of money, but once they pass through Everhold, they're going to be getting quite a decent amount of money since it's a tier 3 area.
Yeah, so both runners are heading down to the Shrine of the Runeblade in the Everhold area here. So just like they went to Grandport, that is an endgame zone. The Shrine of the Runeblade is another endgame zone. So the stuff that you can find in here is very, very valuable. So notably this 50,000 leaf chest. I think that's the single largest source of money that you could find from a chest in the game. It's so much. It's going to enable them to use almost 2 entire hired helps, and it speeds up those bosses. It's super worth it to go out of your way to get this money.
Mr. Melodia is on his way to the Sunshade Sands, presumably to get Primrose. So Primrose, you might not think inherently will make much use, but she'll be used primarily for her path action, which is Allure. So it's quite similar to Ophilia, except there is no level requirement, but there is a percentage requirement. So basically, it works a little. So it's called a rogue action, similar to Cyrus's Scrutinize. So if you fail that percentage chance, your reputation goes down a little bit, and then when that reaches from 5 to 0, that means you cannot perform any path actions, and you'll have to restore your reputation at the tavern, and that cost depends on the town, and this will come into play later on.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to see any restored reputations. That's always heartbreaking to see. It wastes so much time, and it's really unfortunate when it does come into play. But Melodia is making his way through the catacombs here. You can get through this screen with no encounter. It's pretty likely, but it gets a little bit of unfortunate randomness here. Does get the encounter, and then fails the flee. At this point, when you have 4 characters, failing a flee wastes an absolute ton of time. Just because you have to run through all of the actions of the enemies as well as all of the actions of your characters. This is going to allow Karma to gain some ground.
So Melodia was able to escape from the counter on the second try, and then now starting Helgadish. So Helgadish is a pretty easy boss. Even as a 4-character boss, he just falls over to a Light Soul Stone L and any L Stone, or any M Stone, which in this case is a Light Soul Stone M.
Yeah, so at this point the runners have completed their party. They have all 4 characters that they need to finish the route, and they're going to be just kind of moving on, starting to work their way through Ophilia's Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and Chapter 4. So at this point, Melodia is going to be teleporting to Grandport. So like we tagged it earlier, just to allow fast travel to it a little bit later, then you can just teleport there now whenever. So Melodia is doing the early lock route here. So this is going to allow him to pick up another large soulstone as well as some more money. And then he's going to have to teleport back to Grandport and do the 30% allure that Sanjin was talking about.
Yeah, so the the NPC that they'll be alluring later on in Grand Port has the ability to inhibit defenses, which is pretty integral to the speedrun. So normally, generally most other speedruns, you would get Therion or Thief Shrine, which has the ability Armor Corrosive, which lowers their defense by, which makes them take 1.5 times more damage from physical attacks. And this is extremely important because the use of hired help is based on is physical damage.
Yeah, so the way that buffs and debuffs work in this game is really one of the main speed techs that we use. So the inhibit defenses increases the amount of physical damage that you do by 1.5 times, which is a lot when you're considering that you're hitting the boss for anywhere between 6,000 per hit with hired help. And then that just makes it so you kill the bosses much, much faster. So getting a source of defense down for physical is really, really important. Melodia did, in fact, fail the allure 5 times and had to reload. Restoring your reputation in Grand Port is not something that the runners can do at this point. It costs 100,000 leaves, so just kind of reloading that autosave will get them right back into it.
If Ionic able to get inhibit defenses lady within 5 tries, which is good, and then now you'll see they're going to be purchasing some supplies here, primarily pomegranates, to be used in later fights, and then they're going to be making their way to the third area of Grand Port to grab some more money items.
Yeah, this is actually really, really close. It's really cool seeing both runners using the exact same route, because then it's just way easier to see the comparison of where they're at. So Karma, by not getting the Catacombs encounter and by getting the Allure in the first 5 tries, has really made up a lot of ground on Melodia.
Yeah, so I also see them choosing to do a couple skill menus, primarily giving Ophilia the merchant subclass, and then teaching them hired help and or hired help and BP donate.
I didn't see. Did they give them endless items as well?
I believe Melodia gave Ophilia endless items. I did not catch if Ionic gave Ophilia endless items.
Yeah, that's definitely a really interesting adaptation in this route specifically. So if everything goes perfectly as routed, they have one extra large soul stone. But then when things start to go awry, or if you have to back up fights, then you have to chuck more. So in an ideal world, you actually don't learn endless items there, because it does waste time getting the proc and watching the animation for that. And so you really don't want to get it if you don't need it. But both runners here actually make it through the Saints Bridge screen just fine. That is another very scary screen where you can get an encounter that just wastes a bunch of time, and they're going to be moving into the 30% scrutinize here.
Yeah, getting paid a visit by the salamander is usually not a great time. So here they're starting chapter 2, and then they're going outside and buying the Shadow Soulstone now, which we use later on.
The sink? Oh, so it looks like Karma is opting to not do the scrutinize right away, whereas Melodia just went ahead and went for it and got it fairly quickly, so that's really nice to see. He's not going to get screwed over by both RNG 30%, getting that one within the first 5 tries.
So I believe either Ionic just chooses to delay it until after this cutscene, or is choosing to do it after the boss in chapter 2. So doing it after the boss in chapter 2 gives you a slightly increased chance, which is 36% instead of 30%, but of course, being that it's Octopath, you can still fail it.
Yeah, it looks like Karma is just opting to do it at the end there. I kind of actually like that decision. It's a little bit riskier, where if you have to restore your reputation more than once, you can kind of run into some money problems, but
that 36%, it statistically should be a little bit better than the 30%, even if it is a little bit out of the way.
And so now both of them are making their way to the path to the Mirkwood, and Ionic's able to get to the save point without getting an encounter. Since in this screen the walk is quite long, so you're pretty likely to get an encounter, and you kind of ideally do not get one in this screen.
Yeah, both runners doing the save and quit, not getting the encounter on the first screen. They do want to take one encounter in this section, but ideally you want to do it in the actual Mirkwood itself. The encounters inside are just much better for JP. They will level up your characters a little bit more than the ones outside. The ones outside are just lower level. They're not as enticing to kill with your large soulstone.
Oof, Ionic getting caught by surprise by the encounter in Mirkwood. Quite unfortunate RNG.
Yeah, that is definitely not what you want to see. So this is likely going to be a full team wipe. Oh, no. Getting an actual good turn order. What is this?
Oh, I suppose Ionic chose to leave Ophilia dead there, which may have an impact later on.
Yeah, she doesn't need any JP from this encounter, but it might be a little bit scary with the HP from Matthias.
Yeah, 4 characters are also much less likely to die, but thankfully the encounter that ambushed them were owls, and sometimes owls will just sit there and try to lure your offense, which...
Yeah, we see both runners entering the wolf fight. I'm not even going to attempt to say this boss name. You wanna take a stab at it?
I don't want to be chased with pitchforks for this name, but this boss's name is Vitmir, I believe. It is, I think, Norse? Please not quote me on that.
Yeah, you're braver than I. You're gonna have the entirety of the region raising their pitchforks at you.
Yeah, so you'll see here Primrose summon the Inhibit Defenses lady in hopes of getting Inhibit Defenses, and Melodia manages to get the Inhibit Defenses lady to do her job. Oh, both of them did. And now they're rewarded with being able to use less soul stones for the fight, which normally, if you do not get Inhibit Defenses, you would use 3 soul stone L's, but now without, they only need to use 1 L and possibly 1 M, depending on what Inhibit Defenses lady does.
Yeah, so the way this route works, for the Chapter 2 and the Chapter 3 boss at least, you have 3 chances to get Inhibit Defenses, and the Inhibit Defense girl has 3 different abilities, so if you are a fan of math, you should very likely get it in the first 3 tries. Now, on Matthias, it's going to be a little bit of a different story, but on the Wolf, they both get Inhibit Defenses, get to save those soul stones, and don't have to do any backups quite yet.
Yeah, so Ionic did the 36% scrutinize there and got it pretty quick, and so now he's buying the Wind Soul Sonel, and he's off to, and both of them have now completed their Chapter 2 races. This is looking quite close.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I'm really, really excited that the RNG has been equally cruel to both of them.
Yeah, so you'll see here they're gonna buy 2 charm robes and 8 empowering bracelets. So these empowering bracelets give the characters more HP, which is very valuable for the next 2 fights, and then they're gonna be putting the charm robes on Cyrus and Primrose. So these 2 characters specifically are given charm robes because they are quite squishy and they do not take hits very well.
Yeah, and then the empowering bracelets in this case are just really, really good. So they each give 500 HP onto your character. You put 2 of them on a character, you get 1,000. At this point, our characters only have about 300 HP. So we're effectively tripling their HP, and they just got a whole lot beefier.
Yeah, so you see here as you progress through the chapter, they're scrutinizing some people for some items, and then they're looting the chests for money and pomegranates. So they'll be getting 2 soulstones here thanks to Cyrus's Scrutinize.
Yeah, Gold Shore is actually a really good area for Cyrus and Tressa. You get a lot of extra items that are going to be really useful. You get the extra soul stones that are just free in this case. It's a really nice area to get a bunch of stuff out of. All right, so Karma is a little bit ahead, finishing up the guide here. This is a case where they're going to be teleporting out of Gold Shore. So this area right here in the cathedral is really far from where they want to be. They need to be in the far south side of Gold Shore. So they're going to teleport out, teleport back in. That's actually faster than running the entire length. Some runners will choose to actually delay their lock and do it here, which I think is probably the ideal way to run the 4-character route, but it is a little bit riskier if you run into soulstone problems on chapter 2.
So Melodia opted to go to Ripple-Tide, so in this town, you get an extra, you have the ability to scrutinize Tony's mom, by the way, for an extra soulstone, Thunder Soulstone L, while Ionic just opted to teleport to Grand Port and teleport back since both of them have already looted lock.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a questionable decision. So now Melodia is good just in case that he doesn't get inhibit on Mystery Man and Shady Figure, but I really like delaying that until after the fight. Like, he has enough soul stones right now that you can go through the entire fight and be just fine, and then back it up later if you need to. Whereas this is like a little bit more proactive, but you might just not need that soul stone, and that could just be complete time wasted.
Yeah, usually you get EI procs, which in my opinion, EI procs are a myth sometimes. You do not need much of them at Matthias, but of course having more soul stones for Matthias in case inhibit defenses lady does not cooperate is always good. Yeah, so you also see Ionic opt to save and quit there in the screen since the screen is very long. And getting an encounter here is usually not good news. Oh, and Ionic gets the encounter.
That caster curse.
But surprises the encounter, so he gets off scot-free.
Yeah, both runners made it through the path to Grotto with no encounters, which is really, really good. And then once you're actually in the Grotto, it's fairly easy to make it to Mystery Man and Shady Figure without an encounter. Karma just got really lucky right there, but with his bad luck on the Grand Port screen earlier, I think he deserves some good luck at this point.
So this fight is Mystery Man and Shady Figure. So since they're a dual boss, they typically have low HP, but you still want inhibit defenses on them, ideally, so Ionic was able to get inhibit defense on the first turn, which is really good. So basically what they're just doing here is setting up to break them using hired help. So they're gonna break Mystery Man first with the use of bandits.
Yeah, and what's nice is after the inhibit, this fight is completely scripted. As long as you make sure to do your actions correctly, you're going to defeat the boss very quickly.
And so Melodia did not get inhibit defense first turn, which is unfortunate, but there's still 2 more chances to get it. You can kill them without inhibit defense. It's just a little bit annoying since you use more soul stones for it.
Yeah, so both runners just making their way through this encounter. Even if Melodia doesn't get the inhibit defenses, he already picked up the backup soulstone in Ripple-Tide, so 100% good on large soulstones, even if he doesn't get the endless items procs.
Yeah, so the empowering bracelets that I bought earlier here as well come into play because Shady Figure will always do an attack called Luminescence, which will hit your entire partner with for approximately 900 to 1,000 damage, and had they not bought those empowering bracelets, their entire party would have just straight up wiped.
That's the inhibit on Melodia's side as well. So both runners getting good RNG on the Wolf and on Mystery Man and Shady Figure. So making that detour to Ripple-Tide seem that's the biggest time difference right now, is that detour. So Karma is ahead just based off of that.
So Ionic's finishing up the chapter 3, and then now it's making preparations on their way to chapter 4.
Yeah, so this is when the run starts to get a little bit scary. So both runners are going to have to teleport to Atlas Dam here. They're going to be using Ophilia's guide on a flurry lady right here. So this lady, she has the ability flurry, which is a multi-hit bow attack. So now they have 2 uses of flurry. The lady that Primrose has lured has it, as well as this guide, and they're going to be heading up to Whispermill. There is a 100% forced encounter on the way to Whispermill. You cannot get through the screen without getting an encounter, but luckily it is a static encounter. We know it's going to be 2 Plains Drakes, which are enemies that really aren't that deadly. They really like to waste time just messing with your stats, and they only have 2 shields and they're weak to bow. So getting a multi-hit bow attack is really, really handy, and hopefully the NPCs are going to decide to use it.
Yeah, so generally in this high level area, these Plains Drakes will be pretty evasive, and your character and the merchant's attacks will pretty much tend to miss quite a bit on them. So that's why they guided the flurry lady, because summons have 100% accuracy on monsters.
Yeah, and both runners just kind of making their way up to Whispermill, picking up the Cat's Eye. That's the last money that these runners are going to need before Matthias outside the 30k chest. And they're both set up and ready for Ophilia Chapter 4.
Well, then Ionic gets the flurry on the flurry lady first turn. She's doing work. And so they're pretty much able to immediately escape without any mishaps.
That's what you want to see. I think Ionic has had really, really good luck with the summons. He's speaking to them, making them do their job.
So generally in this route, you can choose to get a bag of soulstone and force the purgation, but since both of them have spare soulstones, they will be skipping that. Melodia is on his way up to Whispermill, and then gets surprised by the Plains Drakes, but thankfully that's not a huge issue, since all they just do is lower your defense.
And we get a flurry right away, so both runners getting pretty good RNG to get out of the Plains Drake encounter as quickly as possible. Karma does have a pretty good lead at this point. He's going to be making his way into Whispermill, selling all of the money items that we've been picking up along the way, and then making his way into the Ebony Grotto.
You have some Melodia doing the same too, now doing his final sell menu, buying 2 Great Bends for Matthias, and then selling all the money items. So they need a total of a minimum of around 88.5k to be able to do Matthias reliably, and that also includes any mercs that they will use, since mercs will cost a little bit of money to use.
Yeah, so we're coming up on probably 3 of the most random sections of the game. So the first being this run through the Ebony Grotto. If you get an encounter here, you are very likely to die, and you're reasonably likely to get an encounter before the save point. Karma has pretty good movement throughout, though, makes it to the save point, and will go ahead and exit out very quickly and pick up the last 30k that he needs, which is conveniently located within the dungeon right next to Matthias.
Yeah, so the first screen, you pretty much can't get an encounter unless you mess up movement, and Melodia makes it through quite handily. And then Ionic is starting up the infamous funny cultist fight.
Yeah, this fight is it's definitely funny. They have a chance to use greater soulstones right here. 2 greater soulstones wipes your entire party, so we did not see that, but Ophilia did die. That's a little scary.
Yeah, pretty much getting a Greater Fire Soulstone might ruin your day, and then getting double Greater Fire Soulstone, which is a little bit rare, but it is possible. Pretty much it's pretty much an automatic wipe. And so Melodia also makes it through to the save point before Matthias, quite without any issues.
Yeah, so funny cultists going just fine for Karma, just to kind of finish them up with some soul stones. And moving on to the Matthias fight. So in this route, there's basically three possibilities for how the fight can go. If you get inhibit turn 1 and Matthias doesn't double tap anybody, or he doesn't one shot anybody, you get a clean 3-turn kill, which is the ideal situation. That usually doesn't happen. It's fairly rare when it does, but it's the fastest option. The second option is a six turn break followed by a 9-turn backup. Just kind of depends on when you get that inhibit cast and what Matthias does turn 1.
Yeah, so this fight is pretty important to keep track of your possible soulstone supplies as well as inhibits. So basically, inhibits make this fight pretty much 100% free, but if you don't get inhibits, you're gonna need to plan around it accordingly and keep your party top off.
So on Karma's side, we did not see a double tap, which is good. Everybody lived. We did not see the inhibit defense though. So Karma's gonna have to move into the 6-turn backup. He does have an extra soul stone, which can kind of make up for one hired help not going off with the inhibit. Just you need to be able to do the math in your head and figure out how you're going to finish off Matthias is about 100,000 HP.
And yep, so Melodia is also able to make it through the funny cultist without any issues. Oh, and Ionic gets the inhibit defense on turn 3.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good turn to get it on. Getting it on turn 2 is really awkward, but now he's going to be able to get off some hired helps on this first break and then finish it off on the second break, assuming that he manages his BP properly.
Oof, so Primrose gets double tapped on Melodia's side. Pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, that's definitely not what you want to see. Primrose is very key to finishing this fight. But that does actually free up a turn on turn 2 because you only need to grape one person now. But Melodia not breaking there, that's still fine. Shouldn't be the biggest deal in the world.
It's a little bit risky since Matthias will do Black Gale here.
Oh, that's definitely recoverable from that point. You just needed to defend there.
Yeah. So I think Melodia is just opting to die in this fight.
Yeah, I think that's some nerves and some unfamiliarity with the backups coming in right there.
And so Ionic finishing off Matthias here, thanks to inhibit defenses. Now he's just chucking some soul stones and then finishing off with some vets. So these vets are pretty much the key to doing damage in this category, since you don't really have any good sources of damage. You're completely reliant on hired help for all your damage because they do set damage.
Yeah, and that extra large soulstone from getting good inhibit RNG earlier on in the run definitely paying off.
And GG to Ionic.
Yeah, Ionic takes it. Melodia is not too far behind, but a 52-57 is a very, very respectable time, especially with this route.
And especially considering the really unfortunate Grand Port screen. 2 encounters in a row there is quite rare and really unfortunate to have. So that's pretty impressive time considering all that's happened.
Yeah, very clean execution on Matthias, which what I like to see right there. Alright, so Ionic should have gotten a Discord invite to come join us for some post-match commentary. We'll see if he decides to pop in here. Hey Ionic, how's it going?
Good, how about you?
Doing well. GG's on the run.
GG. So how do you feel about this, about your performance in this race?
I feel like I did pretty well with the cards that I was dealt. Like, the RNG of 2 deaths right in Grand Port sucked. Russell wasn't that great either, but I managed to do what I could with it.
Yeah, that was pretty good considering Grand Port was not very nice to you. And then,
Okay, yeah. Grand Port was like, oh my god, that's a disaster. But it happened.
Yeah, thankfully inhibit defenses they delivered.
Yeah, I got all the inhibit defenses when I needed it for Ophilia 2, 3, and 4. Didn't get turn 1, but good enough for Marathon RNG.
And so Melodia's finished up Matthias and gets to inhibit defenses very handily. And so now he is able to get some bets up and do some nice damage to Matthias.
Yeah, we're gonna see how familiar Melodia is with the damage on Matthias, because the turn 3 inhibit or the turn 2 inhibit is really awkward because it's gonna wear off before your 6th turn, which is like ideally where you want to throw all your damage. But he does have 2 extra large soul stones, so you can definitely just like throw your bets and only have 2 of them happen under inhibit, and then chuck your 2 extra large soul stones. So we'll see if he finds that out. Yeah, Karma, I don't know how much if you were watching Melodia's stream and all, but this was actually a really close race. There were times when you were synced, there were times when either of you were leading at any given point. Did you have that knowledge, or did you play it blind?
Yeah, I had some of that knowledge. I had it on my phone just so that I can keep track of where things were. I wasn't looking at it too much, obviously, just sometimes switching loading screens. But yeah, I saw that it was really close, which made me kind of nervous the entire time.
Melodia getting the last set of inhibit defenses to pretty much make this a clean fight. Yeah, you two are really close, like pretty much neck to neck. So there are like 1 or 2 things that you guys did, or you all did a little bit differently from each other, and then of course like different situations, but you all pretty much got pretty similar RNG towards the mid and late game.
I'm assuming Melodia took her death too in the finals too.
Yeah, it was a little unfortunate. Primrose got double tapped.
Yeah.
I got the BM Lightning Blast here to show Matthias how.
Yeah, you gotta show him his boss. You gotta go rescue Ionic. Yeah, and this should just be a cleaned up fight right here.
One that.
It's a little strange. I think I saw what happened. I don't think the Melodia picked up the extra pomegranate M in Goldshore. I didn't see him go into the house and pick up the double, but he picked up the one on top of the stairs on the second screen.
Oh, did he forget the 30k chest?
No, he had enough money for the vets. He just didn't have enough BP.
Oh, I see. Oof.
Yeah, that's rough.
That's rough.
That is unfortunate. Not sure if Melodia is going to finish, but it looks like he exited out.
Yeah, that's rough.
We'll give it a minute. We'll mark done and see if we can get Melodia in here for some thoughts on the race. Oh, it looks like he DNF'd on the race time, so I'll go ahead and mark it forfeit. Cool. Well, that is our race. So I have a couple of questions, Karma. So I noticed throughout the route you were like playing it very, very safe. So like you broke the wolf with the Holy Light Wolf in Chapter 1. You were killing the frog encounter that had Frog 2 and Frog 1. Is that a decision that you decided to make just for the race, or is that something that you've been doing in your practice as well?
Well, I've also been doing it in my practice because I've been practicing for my race. There's a lot of things, like especially the wolf break, I wouldn't take, and the Frog 2, Frog 1. I mean, at that point, I probably would take it if the run was still going, but a lot of those I usually would take just because, unless it's like going very well, I usually just err on the side of caution.
Nice. That's always good to see. I like the adaptations to kind of remove some of the RNG as you can get it. And it looks like we have Melodia in here. So hey, Melodia, how's it going?
Actually, but yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
we
I
got
can
it.
hear you just fine.
Okay, good.
What are your general thoughts on the race?
Well, I really flubbed the beginning a little, and then I'm actually not 100% sure on Guardian if I had a turn left or not on those whiffs. But I thought I did, but then I thought I didn't, but then he killed it with the wind, so it didn't matter. And then Russell just wrecked me for no reason. But then I got fine luck all the way until Matthias, and the only real quote-unquote bad luck the whole time was that encounter in Primrose, which was extremely early, but no big deal there. Otherwise, until Matthias, and then Matthias, so the first I tried to save it, and then I messed up by defending with Tressa or something, and then I don't know. And then the second time, I got to turn 3, and then I looked at the notes wrong or something, and I put the turn. I was trying to affect the turn. I was like, oh, I have an extra turn because he's already gone. So, okay, I'll just hold off. But then I did the wrong merchant turns or something, and I saw that Comrade finished, so I'm like, you know what, it's not worth finishing at this point. Because, I've already, I don't have my splits up, but I already passed my PB time, which is like 56 or something, so it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate. You two were actually really close, though.
I kind of figured, just knowing what having, I think I commented his race, so I watched him play, and I know he was about the same general pace as I've been doing, so I figured it was probably going to be pretty close, especially with my luck at first. I was definitely ahead of what I consider my bench point at the Merchant Shrine, like 30 seconds ahead there, and I didn't have splits, but I kind of know where things are. And it didn't get worse from there. I didn't get Grand Port Encounter. I got inhibit on both Chapter 2 and 3, so.
Yeah, the RNG was like shockingly similar between your runs. So I know like Karma got a little bit of bad RNG on the Grand Port screen, died twice there, but was able to get ants outside of Whistlewood, whereas your grind went a little bit less smoothly with the lots of frogs.
Yeah, well, although I managed to get, I feel like it actually wasn't that slow in the grand scheme of things, because ants take forever to kill. I managed to kill the ones I did get pretty quickly, and I got only one encounter before Whistlewood, which helped too.
Yeah, overall, I think it was a very good race. So, Karma, your next opponent is going to be Zero. Are you thinking about switching up your strategy, or are you just going with the tried and true?
Considering that he's the #1 seed, I might have to switch up my strategy a little bit to have a chance at that. We'll see if I can feel comfortable enough with the 3-character route. I might do that. Otherwise, I'll just do the 4-character route and hope for the best.
Cool. And Melodia, you can join us on the retired Octopath speedrunners couch where we commentate matches all the time.
Yeah, well, I'm planning on commentating the one tomorrow. In fact, in case people don't know, there is one tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. The last of the first bracket, XenoSync versus NeoSlash. So don't know what channel yet though, but yeah. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I've said this a lot in chat and all that, but if anyone's listening, I actually don't really speedrun that much. I've been interested in it for like 17 years, but I've never really done it that much. And Octopath is really the first game I've done anything seriously since like 3 or 4 years ago. So, you know, I just figured, well, I did a couple runs. Hey, there's going to be a tournament. I'll join. I didn't actually figure I'd win. And if Matthias had given me good luck, I might have won. But I'm not salty or anything.
And sometimes Matthias is not a very nice person. This game is just how the cards are dealt.
And I don't know if you guys talked about it, but, you know, I was originally going to do the Therian route. But then I thought, well, you know, that probably takes a good minute and a half extra. And while it's certainly safer overall, I figured I'd just play my cards and do the slightly more comfortable Allure route.
I assume you're more comfortable with the Therion route than with Allure?
No, I'm
That was
more
an interesting decision. I thought you would do Therion, honestly.
I was more comfortable with the Allure route. I've done it a few more. I didn't do Therion much because I just kept getting such bad luck at the beginning of my runs that it tainted, and I tainted the rest of them, you know. So I'm like, well, the Allure routes, I kind of know the general flow of it a little better. So I figured I might, and other people were using it. I figured a lot of people would go for Therion before we started doing the 3-character nonsense. Not nonsense, but you know what I mean. And then everyone started doing that, so I'm like, oh, well, no one's going to actually do Therion, except Dahlia, of all people, ended up doing it. But so I figured, all right, I'll just do Allure then, anyway, since other people are.
Awesome. Well, it made for a very good race watching you both do the same route. It was really close throughout. So yeah, GG's to both runners. Does anybody have any last minute comments before we sign off?
Yeah, I'm going to have to watch it back because I'm really curious, especially if it's that close as you say.
Yeah, there was like a little bit distance at the beginning, but towards like the exploration segment, and then from chapter 2, chapter 3, it was quite close.
Yeah, I kind of forgot Tavern Patron at the beginning, but then I'm like, oh, well, it just happened. I don't think it matters time-wise, so it doesn't. But and then I like flubbed the menus a couple places, and it's like, but yeah, it's fine. All right, I think we're good. Thanks for the tournament. If anyone, the organizer, is watching, I mean, obviously I said that in chat and all that, but yeah. See you all next time. See you tomorrow if you're going to join us.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. GG's.
GG's.